Hello, good morning. My name is Erika Lizárraga, and today I would like to share with you a very interesting topic that has somehow come up because of this situation nowadays in this lockdown or during this lockdown. And this one is about how to foster with our students emotional intelligence while learning online. Before I start, I would like to share with you an insight that has taken me into talking about this topic, and basically was due to the frustration that I somehow experienced after having lost my job, basically, and then not knowing how to deal with this situation and what to do, basically. Hence, I have to tell you that I took the decision of, taking this adventure in terms of teaching online. And my first encounters were the most frustrating things I have ever gone through. So that is why I decided to share these insights with you and share some ideas and some a little bit of advice if you want to take it like that, to make you feel a little bit better and to make you feel that you are not alone outside, that you have colleagues that are feeling in the same way as I imagine you are feeling right now. Before, let me show you. I would like you to scan, okay, this document, which basically I designed in order to know. Of course, this was not for a formal paper or so, but I decided to invite other teachers to share their ideas with me with regards to the topic. And I asked some of my, my colleagues, some of my friends to answer and give me their blunt, insights about this situation. And what I'm going to do right now is to show you some of the results that I received from my friends and my colleagues with regards to the topic. I'm going to ask you if at any moment in your life, because I know that you are very busy as I am, that you could at any moment answer that questionnaire, because for me it is going to be very, very interesting to read you and to read more opinions with these regards. So with no further ado, let me show you some of the results that I received, while checking and analyzing the results of this questionnaire. And one of them was the biggest challenges of online classes. That was, this questionnaire had in total 10 questions, no more, nor less. And these results belong to question number 2, as you can see. There were 34 responses from my colleagues and friends. And as you can see, the question states, what would you say are the biggest challenges of online classes? You can notice that most of them have to do with the characteristics that we deal day by day with our students, no? Motivation, accountability, time management, confidence, lack of technical skills, proactivity, loneliness, persistence. It's harder to check students' work, students' attention, all of the above, for example, making the daily homeworks, flip teaching and learning, and lack of suitable hardware, like, for example, the hardware that include the microphones and the technology in general. And what drew my attention, if you can notice, is the lack of technical skills that most of us had during this situation. And the second, motivation. And the third, time management. basically because it's total different situation that we are living right now. It is not the same to be in a face-to-face classroom than to be in front of a computer, in which sometimes, and that is one of the things that I have experienced so far, you cannot see students because they simply don't want to turn on the cameras. So for the teacher, it has become a issue of motivation, basically because we don't know how students are reacting behind that camera, and because we cannot perceive how they are feeling when they are taking classes, or if they are there, no, at any moment. I have to tell you that, for example, in my case, most of my students sometimes are not even behind the camera. They are not taking classes, so they are sleeping. So this situation has took me into a state of frustration, basically, a state of lack of motivation, if you want to call it like that. And if you add to that the lack of knowledge that I have, in terms of technology, I was not technologically illiterate per se, but I can tell you that I was not that good, in handling technology in the classroom. So during this lockdown, I had to, take all types of trainings in YouTube, watching, I don't know how many times, how many hours of YouTube trainings in order to get to know all these kind of platforms that we use right now for teaching online. Mainly Google Classrooms, as you can imagine, because I can imagine that you are using them. Teams, Zoom, especially this idea of, how to deal with so many students in one classroom, 25, 56 students. Sometimes it is very hard, especially if you don't know how to control and how to manage the students. So I believe that this is what takes us into this lack of motivation and the time management, because we don't know what type of activities to include in the classroom, or how to deal with certain technical situation, in the classroom. The other question is the aspects which make online classes difficult. And here, for example, as you can see, is the hardware requirements and learning how to deal with these issues. The other one is technical issues that sometimes we don't know how to deal with, especially if we are not specialists in the topic, and we don't know how to deal with them. We get seriously, in my case, I used to get very nervous. I'm very frustrated because I didn't know how to deal with all this technology in general. So part of that took me into learning, self teach, self-learning, and try to do a little bit of research with regards to all these platforms that we have around. And even when I had to study a lot in that topic, I have to tell you that still there are very many things that I don't know with regards to technology. However, right now I can tell you that I feel much better, more at ease, and I feel a little bit more confident while teaching my students online. But it has been a hard way to experience. I have to be very, very honest. The other part is emotions learners have shown in online classes. If you can see here in the chart, the one that draws my attention is the lack of focus. Basically, the answers that were launched in this questionnaire was the lack of focus the students have. And somehow I relate it to the situation, the contexts in which we are living right now. Basically, because I see families, entire families, working in the same environment, all at the same time. Parents, in general, kids, if they are lucky, there's just one kid per family. But if not, there are 3, 4, 5 children, working with the same internet connection. The connectivity becomes really, really slow because the mother, the father are working at the same time as well. Homes are really look like not the not house, okay, in general terms, because everybody's speaking at the same time and everybody's passing around, there are a lot of things, the dogs, the cats, the rats, the guinea pigs, everything is going around. And unfortunately, our students are getting affected because of that. Our students don't know how to cope with that situation. The mother is shouting to the dog and the little girl is shouting to the brother, and they are fighting behind the screen, and the mother doesn't know how to control them, and the teacher is sending them messages telling them to control, asking parents to control their kids. And oh my God, this is such an issue that I have experienced, and I imagine you are experiencing as well. So this kind of lack of focus is becoming a problem right now, because in the classroom, somehow we are able to control our students. We ask them, or we get near, or we touch their shoulders, or we ask them to be quiet, or to keep silence, or we try to use our classroom management techniques with regards to discipline in the best way possible. But at home, behind the screen, for the teacher, it is something that it's almost impossible to do. Basically, because of all the reasons I was giving you. So for the teacher, it has become more and more challenging to know how to control the discipline in the classroom, because we cannot control it, basically. So that is one of the major aspects here. The other one is a frustration, and in the third place, it is fear. Frustration because of all the reasons I mentioned earlier, and also because students don't know how to deal with their emotions while taking classes. They are becoming, even when they know much more than we do in terms of technology, I have found out that somehow they are still frustrated, because they don't know how to handle certain issues with technology. Sometimes they forget to turn off their micro, and the teacher heard the fight, the arguments parents are having in that moment, or the mother, having difficult times with her boss, so on and so forth. There are so many things, and they cannot control. They get really anxious because of these situations. So for the teacher, it is becoming more and more difficult, because if you add to that situation that sometimes we cannot see our students' reactions, their faces, because they have their cameras off, sometimes it is really frustrating. One of the things that I have experienced is like, if all us teachers have lost our sight, we have become blind, and especially because of whenever you are trained to become a teacher, people or your trainers tell you that you have to observe your students' reactions in order to be able to see, to perceive their needs, and how is it that you are going to start helping them. But unfortunately, in these cases, it is becoming very difficult for teachers, because we cannot even see our students' faces. We don't recognize who's speaking, Just because the screen is blinking, that's the moment in which we know who's speaking. But basically, in general terms, it's as like if we were blinded in that moment. We don't know how to deal with the situation. So if we feel like that as teachers, just imagine how our students are feeling, because they cannot control what is happening in their surroundings, in their environment. So that takes us into relearning, changing that chip that we had from the very beginning, and relearning how to deal with these situations, basically, to be able to help them, face this frustration, this anxiety, this depression, this fear that they have because they don't know how to handle the technology, especially if they are very little, the little ones, that they don't know how to deal with this. So that is the third question. The eighth question had to do with this issue of the comparison between the online classes and the face-to-face classes. And most of the teachers answer that online teaching is harder than teaching face-to-face, basically. So it's an interesting number. If you can see, most of the teachers are feeling really frustrated because, as I was telling you, we cannot control our students in the way that we would like to. The parents are there, and they are also, getting immersed in their kids' education, what we didn't have in the past. For example, with our students being in the classroom and not having the parents there around, students somehow listen to us closely and disregarded their parents for a while. But right now, parents are there, and parents are listening to everything we tell them. And sometimes, because they intervene in the class, they don't respect somehow the teacher in a certain way. So it is difficult for the teacher to be able to control that area in the teaching, basically. The other question is online teaching harder? And the answer was yes, basically. Again, for all the reasons that I have just mentioned, it's becoming more and more and more frustrating. And most of the cases, the teachers have told me that the teaching is harder because the way in which we have to plan our lessons has nothing to do with the past. Right now, we need to consider other alternatives rather than just the board that we used to have in the classroom, or the tape recorder, that we used to have there in front of us in order to be able to help our students learn with the learning process, basically. And right now, we need to reboot again our brains so as to be able to plan our lessons in a different way, to make our classes more dynamic, more engaging, more challenging, more of everything that you can imagine, because the students are getting distracted, easier than when they normally get distracted with. So here the idea is that we need to reset our training as teachers in order to be able to teach our students, especially because now the periods, the attention span is getting reduced. So we need to keep that in mind and be able to plan our lessons based on the fact that they have to concentrate for this kind of periods of time, and that we have to plan the activities in such a way that they get involved in the activity while they are at home, behind that screen in which sometimes we cannot see them. So that's the other thing. Now, the other one, it was like, how do online classes affect mental health? I just took some samples of several answers that I received in this questionnaire, and one of them was, I'm going to read them so that you see how important these insights from my colleagues are, and I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. The first one is, you can experience anxiety for long periods of time. And they were referring to themselves as teachers and to the students. Anxiety is becoming, I think, that one of the most challenging issues or topics in our teaching. Basically, because if our students cannot control their anxiety, the same happens to us. So sometimes we lose our nerves and we start, raising our voices, and then we end up with a nut house because nobody is able to listen to each other. Sometimes the students don't pay attention to the micros and they forget to mute them. And we can hear what is happening everywhere, in all the houses. And sometimes for the teachers, it's very, very hard to deal with this situation. You can ask the students to mute the micros, but sometimes they don't pay attention to you. So that is one. The other one is, I think people need to interact with others so students feel lonely. Basically, that is an issue. And I don't know if that happens to you, but you could be surrounded by all your family and still you feel lonely because you don't have anybody to talk with or to talk to in terms of your profession. So if that happens to you, imagine with the students. One of the things that most of my students have told me is that they feel lonely, and that sometimes they feel angry because they have to spend most of the time in their rooms, and they feel angry because there are clothes everywhere, and the dog is jumping on the bed, or the cat is scratching them, or whatever is happening. So they cannot handle the situation in the best of ways. All right. The other one is, some students feel nervous with technical issues. And this is not only the students, it's also the teachers. I have to tell you, and I confess myself with you, that was my case. At the beginning, when I started teaching online, I was feeling so nervous, especially because I didn't know how to control certain issues, like, for example, how to help my students listen, to a listening, because they could not, I could hear, but they could not do it. So I had to learn how to, include the volume, and a lot of technical situations that I had to learn during this time. And those things at the beginning made me feel very nervous. I started sweating, and things that I hadn't experienced since I was, I don't know, 25 years old, 30. So it has become very, very frustrating and very tiring as well, because since you show this kind of emotions, your levels of energy low down seriously. So what we need to do is basically think about that. We need to take a breather, It's important that we take our moments and do things, in its right time, and so on and so forth. I'm going to be mentioning some ideas that I collected from my experience, and I would like to share these insights with you. But basically, that's the idea, no? The other one is a lot more tiring and demanding. It may increase isolation and discouragement. And that's exactly what I was telling you. The motivation for the teacher, the discouragement increases every moment of our lives, especially because I believe that we feel that we cannot help students as we would like to. So that is one of the ideas that I have been thinking about. And sometimes I have found the answer, but others, there's no way I can help my students in the process of learning. The learning process right now is getting stagnated or hindered by all these aspects, right? The other one is passive mode and lack of enthusiasm. Okay. Sometimes you can plan your lessons in the best of the ways, and students don't feel like participating in class, basically, or giving you an answer. So sometimes that is very hard for the teacher, because you in my case, I have to tell you that in my case, at the beginning, I used to take it personally. And I got angry. I lost it, and sometimes I even had to tell them, to tell them off, because they wouldn't do anything, basically. Or they were like, teacher, I'm doing it here in my mind, in my brain, And I was like, are you serious? I mean, there's no way that you're doing it in your brain, and then you cannot remember what the listening was about. So answer it in your notebook, all right? But later on, that was something that I had to reconsider and to think about, because it was not only the matter of telling my students off. I was discouraging them because of my attitude. So this was something that I have to think about, basically. Okay. The other one was shy people are affected with video conferences. They get anxious and stressed. So imagine students, speaking in front of the whole homes, not only in front of their classmates, but in front of the director, the supervisor, the coordinator, the parents of the parents of the parents of the parents, and the family in general. So imagine how stressing, okay, it could be especially if the student is shy. There is no way that we can force them, okay, or push them to turn on the cameras, because that is something that it's part of their personality. So the only thing that I believe we can do for these shy students, if they don't want to turn on the cameras because maybe they were crying minutes earlier the class, or maybe because they are sweating because they don't want to be in front of the camera, is not to push them, just the only thing is to talk with their parents and ask them to be there, checking that they are working while the teacher is giving the class, is delivering the lesson. That is the only thing that I can see, because other than that, you will be demotivating and discouraging them from, moving on and learning as they should. The other one is you spend a lot of time in front of a computer and you miss the contact, the human contact. One of the things that I have to tell you is that is the part that I miss the most. I miss that contact with my students, because there is a word that I love in Spanish that is apapachadora. I like to do that to pamper my students. I like to feel them near me and help them in any way possible. And right now, being behind the screen, it's sometimes difficult, to take your hand into their shoulder and make them feel that you are understanding them and that you are empathizing with whatever experience they are going through. Sometimes that is very, very, very difficult. Okay. It has been very difficult for me so far. And I'm sure that for you too. And the last one, but not the least, okay, is planning activities and learning about applications and platforms in time, which is time consuming. Um, uh, Maybe you're, well, not maybe, I'm sure that you are going to, you agree with me in the sense that planning is time consuming. You know, for face-to-face lessons is time consuming. Most of the times for an hour class, you have to plan for 2 hours. And right now, for me, it has become more challenging because I had to adequate my life to the planning. I spend most of the time planning my lessons, you know, because since I don't know all the platforms and all the applications and all the new resources that I can use in order to help my students, you know, it has been time consuming, and it takes me 1 hour, you know, just to check a platform in order to see the type of material that I can use, and the other hour or hour and a half for the planning, for the actual planning of a lesson that is going to um, last an hour, more or less. So, as you can see, our planning skills need to improve at any time. All right. So, the question is, and this is precisely the topic of today's lesson, is how can I foster my students' emotional intelligence? Okay. The first one, and that is all of these things that I'm going to share with you today are insights, okay, and have been experienced by me while giving classes. So take the advice. If you have the chance to implement them in your classroom, fantastic. If not, I am sure that maybe you have other ideas that I would love to hear from you. If you would like to share them with me, okay, later. Um, One of the things or the tips that I can give you is don't take things personal. Okay. If a student doesn't want to turn on the camera, that is an example, don't push them. I told you this. Don't push them. Don't force them. Just remember that we are dealing in this moment with situations that we cannot control. And the only way in which we can help our students is by talking to their parents and just ask them to be there for them, okay? To check them out while they are taking classes, not to leave them alone, so that they can do whatever the instruction is about. And don't take it personally, okay? If the student doesn't want, refuses to turn on the camera, don't take it personally, okay? Because that is going to take you into feeling frustrated, angry all the time, and it is not worth it. Okay, so don't push the students. Talk to the parents instead. Okay, and ask them to help you in this sense. All right, that is one. The other one is if you're losing your temper, assign a task and give yourself a moment to breathe. Okay, this is like if for example, when you are losing it in the classroom, in the face-to-face classroom, normally what we do is we ask them, you know, to do an exercise from the book and we run into the bathroom. Okay, that could be one example. So the same happens here. Turn off your camera, okay, assign them a task, and then give them 5 minutes to do the exercise, and then breathe, okay, do a little bit of mindfulness, go back into yourself, and then go back into the class. All right. um, don't lose your temper. It is not worth the emotion, basically, because you are not solving anything. On the contrary, you are going to lose it, and then you're going to start shouting at students. The parents are there. They are going to start complaining with the supervisor, with the coordinator, with the director, and then you are going to be told off by your bosses, and it is not worth it. So keep yourself calm, okay, at all moments. And you are going to see that by showing this to your students, they are going to thank you because you are being patient with them. all right? And you are demonstrating them that you understand what they are going through. This part of empathy is very, very important, okay? The other one is ask help from students in case you don't know how to handle technical issues, all right? I was telling you that in most of the cases, our students know much more than we do. So don't feel afraid, okay, of showing yourself vulnerable with your students, because basically they know much more than we do. So ask them for help, you know? And if they don't know, I can assure you that they will figure it out, because they, in that moment, one of the advantages of teaching online is that they Google everything. You know, they go to some Google and they can give you an answer, you know? So ask for help. Be open, you know, for receiving help, especially with technical issues, all right? And if you don't know, there are tons of videos in YouTube that you can, you know, somehow watch in order to learn and to improve your skills with these technical issues, all right? The other one is keep yourself grounded, all right? Now, the question is, how can I keep myself grounded if I am tired, exhausted, because I have to plan for hours and hours, and I have to deal with 56 students behind cameras that I cannot see them, I cannot help them. So how can I keep myself grounded? Just remember your mission in life, okay? And your mission in life is precisely that of helping human beings, all right? At least for me, that is what has kept me grounded. I try to remember that my mission in life is to help my students learn, but most of all, be happy, okay? Be happy learners, successful learners. And I cannot achieve that if I am angry, if I am anxious, if I am showing them all the negative emotions that I have within myself, all right? There's no way I am going to be able to help them. So just keep this in mind, all right? By keeping in your brain the idea that you are helping human beings, that is going to help you, you know, keep all the patience in the world and keep yourself grounded, basically. All right? The other one is empower students. The other day I don't know, and I have to confess, I don't know if it was a meme, but I remember that it was something that made me very, very, very angry. All right. I saw these stamps that we used to put in our students' notebooks when they finished a task or an exercise or something. One of the teachers in that meme said, you are, what was it? How did he say? Eres una vergüenza para tu familia. That's what the stamp said, you know? And it made me feel seriously, seriously angry, guys, because that is the least of the things that we need to tell our students right now in these moments. We should never accept comments from our students, all right, in which they say, I am not capable of doing this. I cannot do it. I cannot cope with this. I cannot do that. Never accept a no for an answer, okay? Instead, help them to understand that everybody is different and that we have to accept that we are different. We don't have the same skills, the same abilities, and we have to accept ourselves in the way that we are, all right? So just tell them that. Make them understand that we should never compare against anybody else, because we are individuals and we are unique and we are beautiful in the way we are. So never ever accept no for an answer. I cannot cope with this. I cannot do that because I am so stupid That is one of the answers one of my students used to tell me. I'm so stupid for doing these. I don't like these games because I am always very stupid. And I told him, you are not stupid. You are very intelligent and you can cope with this and more. Okay? But never ever say that again, because you are unique and you are beautiful and you are going to be able to do whatever I ask you to do. So never accept negatives, okay? Empower students instead, all right? The other one is enjoy your teaching, guys, okay? In the same way as you used to do it in the face-to-face classrooms. And if you didn't do it in the face-to-face, well, that is something that you have to somehow rethink, or reconsider. Because in my case, teaching has always been my oxygen. And when I am not teaching, it's like I am not able to breathe. So enjoy it. Enjoy it. I know it has been challenging. It has been difficult. It has had all the constraints that you can mention, but just remember that you are doing this because you like it, because it's your mission in life, because your mission in life is to help other human beings to get better at any level. All right. The other one is become much more empathetic. Okay. This one is make your students feel that you understand them. Okay. That you can deal with any situation and that you understand everything they are going through as well. All right. And don't push your students to their limits. Just remember, okay? And by pushing students to their limits is to make them feel angry, anxious, frustrated. Don't do that. Just remember, in face-to-face classrooms, we don't do that. So if we don't do that in face-to-face classrooms, don't do it in online classes, okay? Because remember that the higher the attention span is, the better. The lower the anxiety, students learn the less, okay? So don't push them. Instead of that, empower them, all right? And some of the things that, for example, have helped me, and maybe that can help you also in fostering your students' emotional intelligence, is by looking for platforms, or materials that can help my students improve their level of English. And I would like to show you some of these ideas, okay, that I show you. I'm going to ask you to scan the codes so that you can visit, all right, the pages. And if they help you in the planning of your lessons, that is going to be fantastic. And if you have more ideas that you can share with us, your colleagues, that would be lovely as well. So let's explore this page, okay? In this case, this page, okay, has to do with a platform that is called AnswerGarden, especially because since you cannot see your students' notebooks in that moment, this is a good way of checking how much your students are getting from the topic. You are able to check their answers, their ideas, and also you can provide them with feedback in terms of spelling, of grammar, or whatever else. This is a very good tool that you can use in order to provide the students with feedback in terms of learning. Okay, so this is one. The other one, okay, has to do with Padlet. Okay, Padlet is a very interesting platform in which you can do almost everything, because it's like a collection of Post-its. You have a board and you have Post-its, you have your flashcards, you have everything. But the interesting thing here is that you can collect important information, relevant information from your students. and for the class as well. So, for example, in this case, there were several questions, no? Like, for example, how can Padlet promote your learners' autonomy? How can you use Padlet to make your learners more competent in a specific area of study? How can learners collaborate with each other on Padlet? All right. And you can launch this, all right, these questions, and you can receive some feedback from students. Okay. So it is interesting because not only you can read the answers, but the students as well. So it is an interesting feedback, that both teachers and students receive from any activity that you can create in this platform. Okay, the other one is an interesting one that I love, okay? And I was very happy to find because it has to do with classroom lyrics. Basically, because it has to do with topics that you are teaching your students, all right? And it could be any topic. It could be science, it could be grammar, spelling, math, whatever. And the interesting thing is that students, okay, after the lesson, they can create their own songs, okay? So basically, this is one of the songs that students, for example, were creating. And I would pretty much like for you to hear it, but I would like to move on so that I could share the last part of this. It would be interesting getting to that classroom lyrics, and you're going to watch a lot of videos of different students, dealing with different topics, science, grammar, so on and so forth. And they will be singing songs with each topic. So it was fun, really, believe me, okay? The other one is this one, Tandem, okay? Tandem is also a very, very interesting application, if you want to call it, or platform, because it's an application that you can download in your cell phone, okay? And this especially would be not for children, but for adults, basically young adults. And I have found it very interesting because my students, for example, one of the things that they complain about is that they don't have the chance to talk with native speakers or other people around the world. So I found this application that you can download, and you can find a lot of people all around the world who want to practice English, or any other language. It doesn't have to be necessarily English. I mean, there are several languages here. But the interesting part is that you choose the language that you want to practice, and then you start scanning, for the people that you would like to share your insights and that you would like to converse with. And then you start chatting with them, and it is very interesting because if you notice that that person doesn't give you like a good vibe, you can just move on into the next one, and it is not dangerous because you can change people, okay, at random, and you can chat with them. All right. And the interesting thing is that they tell you exactly what is it that they want to do and their interests, so that you can find somebody that likes the same things as you do. Okay. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys. I really, really thank you for being here in this talk. And I hope that these insights, these ideas that I share with you today are helpful. And if you are willing, in sharing with me some ideas, that would be lovely. If you want to write to me and share those ideas with me, that I would really appreciate it. Okay? Thank you very much.
it's always rewarding listening to these kind of talks at BBELT. And I'd like to share some questions the audience has. First of all, I would like to ask you this. How can teachers avoid cheap psychology to hinder their ability to improve their development about this matter?
Cheap psychology.
Yeah, it was interesting, right?
Meaning, what? Handling students' psychologically.
I suppose.
Basically, I believe that we should never do that. I'm a true believer that we should never manipulate our students in any way. What I have found out very interesting is the fact that telling your students how you feel, when you cannot see them because they don't turn on their cameras, has worked very well for me. One of the things that I remember telling them the first time was, just imagine that I am blind, okay? And the only thing that I have is my ear to trust in whatever you are feeling and you are needing. So help me, retrain my ear. But first, let me see your faces. Help me in that way, okay? Just pretend that I am walking by the street with my cane, and I cannot see anything. And you are helping me to cross the street, So I think that story in a specific has helped me a lot, because I'm not manipulating them. I'm just telling them how I feel, and they somehow empathize with me because they understand that by not seeing them, there's no way I can help them.
Okay. It's such a nice point of view, because we as teachers sometimes feel like that, so frustrated that we don't know how to tell our students the way we are feeling. But it's a really, really interesting point of view. I've never thought of that before, Okay, can I ask you a second question, Erika?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, second question says, do you think that sharing with colleagues on a regular basis could help us to better manage this feeling?
Exactly. And especially if your colleagues are psychologists, okay?
Definitely, that helps a lot.
We need to go to the nuts house right now. No, I'm kidding. Basically, I have found out that, sharing ideas with colleagues, especially with the younger ones, because they know much more about technology and applications and platforms and all kind of sites, that can help you with materials and teaching, it is very gratifying because you can plan, faster than if you are totally blinded in this area. So yes, it is very important to share your ideas, your feelings, and you're going to see and find out that there are a lot of teachers feeling in the same way.
Definitely. And you are right. Experienced teachers have basically this, but when we don't really know about technology, having this ear open, let's say, helps us a lot, right?
Yeah.
Listening to new ideas from colleagues, and as you say, young colleagues, right? But you are right. You were kidding at the beginning. I asked you this question, but when they have kind of expertise in psychology, it's much better, I think. Right? Well, I've got another question to ask you. It says, what would you do to make your students comfortable in order for them to turn their cameras on? Well, you gave us an idea, but try to answer the question, please.
Yes, I was telling you this story of me sharing my emotions with them, and particularly not because I want to manipulate them, but I want them to be aware that behind the screen, I feel like a blind person, who cannot help them because I cannot see them. The only thing I can do is hear them. And sometimes my ear is not that well trained to understand whether they are feeling angry, frustrated, depressed, sad, or they had cried, 20 minutes earlier before the class. So sometimes by sharing your emotions with your students, by telling them brief stories about how to help other people and accept other people's feelings, they can understand and they can turn on the cameras. That's what has helped me in this sense, you know.
Definitely. I just would like to share something with you. Sometimes what has happened to me is that students are kind of shy of sharing the place where they live in.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be risky, you see. That's why I totally agree with you, because we cannot force them. If they feel invaded in their intimacy, oh God, we gotta be careful, right? I don't teach young learners. I teach, well, they are teenagers, you know, but I mean, I don't talk children. And I think that would be riskier, forcing them to turn on their cameras if they don't feel comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
So is it okay if we just share the way we feel with them, but forcing them to do it? Oh God, I wouldn't find a way or an easy way to kind of guiding them to do it. You see?
Yeah, no, never force them. That would hinder their process, you know, of learning. So no, never force them. Just share with them your emotions if they want to, you know, and they feel like it. Fantastic. If not, don't never force a student to turn on their cameras.
Thank you, Eri. Well, I don't know. I think we've got some more minutes because some questions have been appeared now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I can ask you more questions, right?
Yes.
Could be a couple of questions. Okay, you've got some congratulations and thanks for sharing this with us.
Thank
so
you.
I've got this question from Liliana. She asks, do you think sharing your vulnerability, saying you feel tired, lonely, limited, can harm your image as the authority, leader, or responsible adult of the class?
No.
What would you say? Not really, right?
Not really, because you are showing your precisely your vulnerability to your students, and they see you as somebody that who they can trust. You know, instead of pretending that nothing happens, that you are okay and that everything is cool, you know, and you are cool and collected all the time. Not really.
Definitely.
I mean, it's the other way around.
All right. Can I go on with 2 more questions, maybe?
Yes.
All right. It says, what about discipline in the virtual class? Can you give us a tip? That's what Yvonne Melchor says. All right.
Well, basically, I mean, I'm going to share with you a situation that I have gone through, and the first time I experienced it, I was like, "What?" You know, one of my students was on his bed, on his pillow, you know, taking the class with his tablet, and I was like, "Come on, are you serious? Why are you on the bed? You are supposed to be taking classes in a normal classroom. So pretend that you are in the classroom and you are not going to be on your bed." And he understood, you know, where he was supposed to be. Understand that you are in a classroom. Even when you are in a you know, face-to-face classroom, you need to respect the other people that are around. And I told him, just imagine that everybody's looking at you. You're on television and everybody's looking at you, you know, sleeping on your bed, taking classes. This was an 8-year-old, you know, and he understood it. And then I had an adult, you know, holding a teddy bear, you know, during the class. What? So I was like, what shall I do in terms of, you know, dealing with an adult who is taking English classes, holding a teddy bear? What? You cannot do much, basically, you know, but telling them, okay, are you taking notes? That's the only thing, you know. Are you taking notes? Please, I need you to take notes because we are going to be, you know, working with this information later. So I encourage you to take notes
and
because I'm going to ask you later.
You're right. And make them aware of what they are doing at that moment, right?
Exactly.
Because if they just are conscious of being in front of a teacher and they are taking a class, the thing will be more serious for them, I think.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Well, we've got 1 more minute, or I think time is over, right? I don't know. It's 11:30. So I don't know. Should I ask you another question?
Yes. That's
All
me.
right. Well, it says very interesting topic. Could you share with us some strategies you use in your teaching to deal with lack of interest in class?
Well, I've been trying to incorporate all kinds of activities. As I was telling you during the talk, attention span is being minimized, So basically, what we need to do is to prepare many more activities in order to promote learning in the classroom and help students, understand certain issues. So
You're right.
the more materials you have, the better for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Erika, thank you so very much for sharing this nice talk with us. And well, I think it's time to go to another talk. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
very much.
Thank you.
See
I
you
really
soon.
appreciate it.
Goodbye.
Bye.